notice it till you pointed it out. I always love your shirts, but that one's a winner right there. What is the eye? What is that? It looks like it's got something. It looks like an eye has something special going on with it.
No. Oh, even on the side? It's just a flag.
Oh, there you go. Oh, that's the flag. That's funny. Oh, here we go. Working. Oh yeah, I didn't light my sage.
Yeah. I mean, we always need the sage.
Always. That's what the guys told me.
Whenever
you start your podcast, light your sage so nothing can come through while you're chatting.
Great.
Hi, Daniel Jackson. Nice to see you, bud. Hi, Donna. Hi, Leanne. Hi, Cherise. Hi, Chandrika. Sorry we're a couple minutes late. That was my fault entirely. Dr. Scott was on time, but my computer was giving us a hard time. There was no sound again. I don't know what's going on with technology lately. Hi, Elaine. Nice to see you. Good morning, Buffy. Hi, Ariana. How is everyone today? Did you guys sleep well last night? Hi, Maria. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Christine. Just lighting the good old sage.
Do you have your yin yang coffee mug as usual with kombucha?
I actually don't. I have something different today. Although my coffee has gotten cold, so it's not as impressive as it was. It's that mug that changes colors and lights up when it gets warm.
Hey, that's pretty cool still.
Isn't it though? It looks black until you fill it up with something.
Reminds me of those 1990s hypercolor shirts. Do you remember those?
I love those. Yeah, that's why I got that. I love those.
I don't even know if they still make
all that kind of stuff. Like I used to have all the mood rings and all those things. All the things that change color, I love. Hi, Cal. Hi, Lori. Hi, Derek. Hi, Amanda. How is everybody today? What have you guys been up to? So nice to have Dr. Scott with us today. And I love the shirt today, Dr. Scott. This is a perfect shirt for the times, isn't it?
It is. I got the opportunity this past weekend to go to a campsite with a bunch of veterans and do Dolores Cannon's group regression hypnosis there.
Way.
Yeah. And so this is sort of like my, my swag that I got from the event. They have a super cool brand of shirts called Grunt Style. This is their logo, the crossed muskets. And just being there with these incredible people for 3 days, because it was there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we didn't leave till Sunday afternoon. I mean, the veteran community is, in my opinion, almost ready to be unplugged, from the Matrix, in my humble opinion. And it primarily just because of the way they've been treated by the VA and government authorities and whatnot. So
yeah,
it was.
Well, you find some that are very inherently brainwashed, but then you get others that are smelling the bullshit, so to speak, and they can really see where the priorities are aligned with this current government, or I should say, most governments these days. They're just kind of overrun by corruption and manipulation and all of this. It's like, what's the word? Nepotism, So yeah, it's time of change, and I really am excited about all the wonderful things that are coming forward. But it's going to get messy, I think, before we get to the, till we start seeing real change.
That was one of the things I was curious about, because I had a chance to talk to one of their leaders. So there's two groups here, the Grunt Style people, and then there's a group called Irreverent Warriors. And these two groups together put on these camps. And the whole purpose of these camps is to bring the veterans into the woods, get them hiking and engaging in alternative healing modalities.
Ooh, I like that.
Cool is that, right?
I like that. Brilliant. Out of all the people that I clear, the veterans have the most stuff going on, usually, in most cases. Yeah, they come home with a lot more baggage than the average person even is aware of. So they're dealing with usually multiple lifetimes of trauma. If you're a soldier in this lifetime, it's almost guaranteed you were a soldier in other lifetimes. And so it's almost like a role that you're kind of used to, that you keep serving. And it's not even the humans that are doing this too. We were having this conversation yesterday that even the Lizzie soldiers are very similar to how American soldiers and all these others are kind of convinced that they are giving their lives for honor, that they're giving their lives as the greatest sacrifice that you could possibly ever have, is to sacrifice oneself for your own country or your own people. And yeah, that is obviously just part of the whole patriotic brainwashing that so many people are kind of stuck with over multiple lifetimes. And I'm sure during some of these hypnosis sessions, you had some very interesting things coming out.
We certainly did. I was humbled by just being invited to participate in the experience as an instructor there. But the thing that struck me is all the progress that this group has made that I wasn't even aware of. For example, their primary mission is to stop the overprescription of SSRIs to veterans.
Nice.
They've got facts and data that show that the veteran demographic, if you just consider the veterans as a demographic in and of itself, they are set more likely to be prescribed SSRIs, 70% more likely to be prescribed SSRIs than any other demographic in the world. So this is just because the VA just tosses pills at them, right? This is what happens. And so this is what they're actively trying to stop: grunt style, irreverent warriors, and the rest of them.
The suicide rates for their demographic is astronomical too. I mean, didn't they say somewhere like every 30 seconds a soldier takes their life?
Yeah, the suicide rate is astronomical, and that's their mission behind the mission. Is they call each other battle buddies, and so they're trying to stop their battle buddies from offing themselves, which is completely understandable. And the SSRIs aren't helping things, right?
Most of the time, those are caused by entity attachments and the trauma that are being triggered by these, experiences that they're having overseas. And many of them, like the night terrors and things that they have are quite immense. And I hate to say it, but men aren't really forthcoming about talking about their feelings very much. They kind of bottle things up, and they don't release any of that emotion. And after a while, it just gets heavier and heavier and heavier until you feel like you're just hammered into the ground.
Right. No argument for me there. And I did learn an aspect that I wasn't aware of before, although maybe I should have been. And what I learned about veteran suicide is, yes, battle trauma is part of it. That's part of it. But what's almost worse is coming home. It's coming home. It's not being there. It's being reintegrated back into society, because the military is, I guess, to be complimentary for a minute, the military is so good at giving anybody a purpose, right? They give you an identity, they give you a purpose, they give you an occupation, a role, and you become that for however long you're in the military. That's your identity. Mm-hmm. And then when you come back home, society is not good at giving you those things. No, they're not good at giving that to you at all. And so it's almost like this.
You've lost your free will, basically. And then, they take it from you, quite literally. You become almost an instrument, or the same as a vehicle or some other form of physical asset that the military owns. So you don't have a say in what you do, where you go, and to lose that much freedom, but then to have it given back to you after you've had it gone for so long. It's like, what do you even do now? It's kind of like what happens with prisoners when they are released from jail. Many of them also struggle to kind of reintegrate into society, especially with so much trauma that has occurred and compiled.
Yeah. And it's that reintegrating phenomenon, that sense of purposelessness that leads to a ton of the veteran suicide outcome. So
I was just reading the comments. Lindsay says, back in 2013, my vet neighbor Homer ended his life because his surgery at the VA hospital was canceled that morning. Rest easy, sir. If you send me Homer's info, Lindsay, I will. I'll check him. I'll put him on my lost soul rescue list. Thank you, Lindsay, for bringing him up. So I am sure that almost every one of us know somebody that was in the military that has been through something absolutely horrific. So it's
maybe the horrific thing is coming back home.
Sorry, there's a bit of lag.
Sorry about that.
No, I was just
adding to what you said. Sometimes the horrific thing is coming back home and realizing, oh, your life is in shambles and all these negative things have happened, stateside, and that's difficult to deal with, right?
So how does hypnosis help somebody that's been going through that kind of trauma?
So in terms of the group dynamic, you have the network effect going on, which is what I call it. When you have a bunch of people in the same room mentally focused on the same thing, you sort of get that quantum network effect that some of us are familiar with. So first of all, just doing it with other like-minded people is therapeutic and beneficial and helps for the outcome. So that's one aspect of it. The other thing is, as we know, reincarnation and karma are sort of the laws of the universe, right? So going back and seeing a past existence, a past life, can help the veterans in particular see repeated patterns in the present, right?
So they can break that cycle.
It goes exactly back to what you were saying. So if they see themselves doing similar things in the past and here they're doing similar things in the present, then they're like, oh, well, look, I'm doing similar things. Maybe I should break this cycle, right? It's pattern recognition. Yeah. So that in my opinion is what the primary benefit is allowing many of these people for the first time to see a pattern that maybe they weren't aware of.
Well, as a Starseed veteran as well, there's also layers of trauma. You don't even have to be in the military to have military style trauma. I've learned that myself because I've been a warrior how many times in different lifetimes, and I have been through some really heavy shit, and you don't even know that you've been through it because you're not doing it in this lifetime. But I found that you're still repeating cycles even without being aware of it, or even having the exact same process and going through that. Although I did almost join the Navy, I must say. There might be a timeline out there somewhere where at around 18, I did join the Navy thanks to a trip to Pensacola and seeing all their handsome uniforms.
Sailor Lara is a thing.
Up with this. So maybe there is a timeline where I'm doing something very different out there today.
Yeah. So it was a great chance to get out there and just be with them and hike with them and listen to them. And just the idea that this group is engaging in alternative healing modalities is such a finger in the eye to the mainstream pharmaceutical establishment. Yes. Who the Irreverent Warrior group and the Grunt Style group is sort of signaled as their arch enemy, almost, right?
Yes, so, good point.
Very cool, especially if you're of the rebellious nature, like so many of them and myself are.
But it just goes to show there is a shift happening in many different degrees around this planet and in many different capacities, even amongst those who are unawakened and, unaware of what's actually occurring physically anyway.
Yeah. And that's probably a good lead in because repeating patterns and things that people are unaware of is a theme in the Gnostic texts. And I brought some material today to share with your audience.
You did? Yeah. Fancy that. I love hearing some of your insight on the Gnostic text. Wonderful.
Yeah.
What have you got for us today?
Okay. So there's a book that was discovered in the Nag Hammadi library called The Secret Gospel of John. It is probably one of the 2 or 3 most foundational Gnostic texts that there are. And just to give you guys an idea, the suspected authorship of when this book was originally written is probably around the 1st century, okay? CE, 1st century CE. But as you and I have talked about before, there's so many calendar shenanigans involved. When was the 1st century CE? Almost, according to what calendar, right? According to what calendar was this? But If you do the research, first century CE is when this book came about. And it is a Q&A session between Yeshua, who had already resurrected and already attained his spirit body, and his disciple John. John was getting picked on by the Jewish hierarchy. They were gloating. They were essentially saying, "Ha ha, we killed your leader. You know, where is he now? I thought he was God." Right? So they're really just doing a victory lap, and John got down in the dumps and depressed. And so it was in that state of mind in which Yeshua appeared to John and answered all of his questions. Right? Some of the questions concerned, hey, what is all this reality? What are we doing here? Right? How did this all begin?
What is the point of all of this?
Right. And so that I think I wanted to share with your audience, and then link it back to.
This is actually new to me as well. So thank you, Dr. Scott. I love it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So to understand what Gnostic thought is, there's a couple of terms that we have to define in Gnostic wisdom so that you guys understand what we're talking about. The first term is called the pleroma. 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 It's just a realm of eternal light where the emanations from source dwell. So it's like real estate. It's the sandbox for the source's creative efforts. Okay, so I think about it as a sandbox. So there's this thing called the pleroma, and everything that source creates is within this sandbox. Okay, that's simple enough to understand, I think. And then the things that he puts in the sandbox, the things he puts into the pleroma, are called aeons, Aeons. They are divine archetypes, and they're concepts like mind, truth, wisdom. These are things that source put in this sandbox.
Yes.
Okay. And then below those things, and within that sandbox, there exists the material cosmos, right? The material cosmos, that's the stardust and everything that you see out in the heavens. It's the nets, the matrix simulation type of matter, right? It's
all that gold they tell us is in our hair and nails and everything. You know what I mean? Like they're always saying that you are stardust. Yes.
I guess in a very real way, it actually is the sand in the sandbox, right? If you're talking about stardust, right?
Good analogy.
And within the sandbox, there's rulers of the sandbox, and they are called archons. And we'll get to them in a minute, but those are kind of like the four types of concepts at play here in most Gnostic texts. Okay, so knowing that there was an aeon, and again, aeon is Aeon, named Sophia. So Sophia appears in the sandbox. Sophia watched Source doing all this creative stuff, just really having a good time creating within the divine sand. Maybe I should just call it divine sandbox. So Sophia was watching Source create everything in this divine sandbox, and she was inspired to do the same. Okay. The difference is that Sophia herself, in order to create like Source, she needed a consort. She needed someone to mate with, someone to work with her. And so she was supposed to work with an entity called the self-conceived God, or the self-anointed God in Gnostic texts. These two were divine masculine, divine feminine, and they were supposed to commingle and create. And in working together, they could have achieved what Source achieved. However, Sophia jumped the gun, and she did not do that. Sophia decided to just sort of asexually reproduce on her own and leave the self-anointed conceived God entity out of it.
Who could blame her? Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know we had that option. Okay, good to know.
Right. Yeah. So, because she's sorry, go ahead.
So go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah. I was
All right.
laughing at Aaron said the same thing I did. Yeah. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. So because Sophia was so powerful of a being, she could still create things. She didn't necessarily need a consort to create with, but in doing it on her own, it lacked the qualities of the self-anointed, the self-conceived God, the divine masculine. And so she created this sort of like shadow universe is what manifested out of her. It was a universe without light. Okay. So this is what happened when she, jumped the gun and did things on her own. And so she looks at this creation of hers and wonders, why didn't it work? Right? She would figure it out later. But in the moment, she was ashamed of her creation. She was ashamed of it. So she covered it with sand or stardust and hid it from the others, right?
Yeah.
Hid it as much as you can hide anything from source, I guess, which is to say you really can't, right? But she acted as if, right. Exactly. In that act of creation and creating her own shadow realm that she was ashamed of, she had a son, and she put him in charge of this shadow universe. And that son, his name was Yaldabaoth, also known as Sackless in other texts, but his name is Yaldabaoth. So now we have a shadow ruler in a shadow realm set apart from the rest of everything else in the sandbox. And Sophia didn't want anybody to know about it, right? Because she was ashamed of it. She was ashamed of it because it didn't function like the other creations of Source at the time. Okay. So this is already painting sort of a different cosmology than what we're taught. Okay.
Yeah,
well, it gets worse. So Yaldabaoth springs into existence, and he's looking around and he's like, hello? Is anyone here? And Sophia didn't answer Yaldabaoth because Sophia was ashamed, right? So Yaldabaoth naturally assumes what one would assume if you spring into existence in a universe and there's nobody there but you. And he's thought, well, I must be God. So Yaldabaoth then says, okay, well, I'm going to start creating now. So now he's creating it in his own sandbox, and he sets up this whole network of angels and this whole network of abyssal type of entities, and sets the stars in motion and does all this thing in the Gnostic texts. So now we're down here into our material realm. Right. We're down here, and Yaldabaoth is the head of this material realm, and he's creating all these things. He hasn't created man or Adam yet. We'll get there in a minute. But so this is when Sophia takes notice. Sophia's like, okay, this is my Frankenstein creation is now out of control, right? I need help. And so she confessed or repented in the texts to her consort, who is called the self-anointed, the self-conceived God, who is a Christ figure. And that figure said, hey, no problem, right? I'll just dive down in there and we'll give them some light and everything will be good, right? No. So here's how that happened. Yaldabaoth decided to eventually create Adam as a servant type of being. And so here, if you can picture Adam, this would have been in a spirit body at the time, not a flesh and blood body. But if you can picture spirit body Adam just laying there with no life in him at all, Yaldabaoth couldn't figure out why Adam had no light, no animation, no essence, no life force like he himself had. And so this is where the higher realms intervened, and they set up this deception to sort of trick Yaldabaoth and giving up some of his own divinity, because he was from Sophia, and breathing it into Adam's face. So this was the creative process. So Yaldabaoth, I'll call him a coach. A coach arrived and said, "Hey, breathe some of your own life essence into Adam, and he'll come to life." And so he did. Yaldabaoth did do that, and Adam did come to life and was inhabited by spirit, and he was enlightened, and he was smarter than Yaldabaoth himself, because he received divine guidance. He had the essence of the divine breathed into him directly from Yaldabaoth himself. And what does Yaldabaoth do? Do you think he says, "Hey, I am proud of you, son"? Or was he probably more jealous, right?
Probably the latter.
He was more jealous. And
Usually
so,
the way.
yeah.
I guess ego affects deities as well, yeah?
Right. So we're already we have a big departure from the regular creation narrative now that the mainstream church teaches, let alone where we end up. But because of this, because Adam had a spark of the divine breathed into him, now he had an inner conflict. He has an inner conflict, because now he got soul from his creation process. He had a soul, but he received spirit as a gift through Yaldabaoth from the divine, from source. And so in him is now this yin yang type of thing. He's got this battle between soul and spirit, right? Whereas before he only had soul. Yaldabaoth governs souls in this universe. That's his jurisdiction, but he does not govern spirit. And so they make a very clear distinction between the two in the Secret Gospel of John. So Yaldabaoth got jealous, did more and more surgeries on him, until eventually he is imprisoned in a human body, right? I mean, they gave him anesthetic, they wiped his memories, but they couldn't wipe the spirit out of him. Like once that's there, it can never not be there. The only thing Yaldabaoth could do is make you forget about it. And so Yaldabaoth spent the rest of his time in the book sort of trying to make Adam forget about his divinity by distracting him with other things. Okay. So that's kind of the story of how Adam came about. And this set up the whole Gnostic return, the whole Gnostic path to ascension and realizing one's inner divinity. Because we know the rest of the story. We heard about Eve in the Garden of Eden and all of this stuff. Spoilers, a bunch of ETs involved there. we can get into that later. Excuse me. But anyway, after Adam had the divine spark breathed into him and he came about and started doing his thing, he eventually got exiled from the Garden of Eden. And so Adam then started to have offspring. He had offspring. So we're having this recurring pattern of creation, offspring, creation, offspring, creation, offspring, all the way up back to source. Even through this Sophia drama, it's still creation, offspring. This is what's happening. And so recognizing this pattern that the Secret Gospel of John is revealed that true salvation doesn't come necessarily from an external source or an external religion or a blind faith. Right. It's through gnosis. It's through the inner knowing. It's Adam realizing, oh shit, I'm divine. Right?
Oh shit, I'm God.
It's realizing that everything else has been put in front of me to distract me from this thing, that I am actually a form of spiritual nobility. I come from source. That's where my spirit comes from, and all the soul stuff is a distraction. So this is the path to gnosis, or to attain the inner knowing, and by awakening the spirit within, those who follow the Gnostic wisdom believe that humans can overcome the illusions of the material world and overcome the influence of the archons, because it's this whole idea that the material realm that we are in is just one of many, and there's many realms above this material realm. There's a God above Yaldabaoth. There's a God above God, and it's source. It's
This
that
is the
revelation.
part that has always kind of grinded my gears. Is the fact that there are bureaucrats at every level of consciousness. There's still going to be some kind of authority over the next layer, over the next layer. It's like God, it's like the universe even itself has a pyramid scheme. Like,
Until we all get back to source, right?
yes,
Well,
until you go back to source, of course. Source is the pinnacle of that. That is all that comes from that. You know what I mean? And it branches out. It's like,
right.
well, the thing is about source too is that it is happy to just be in any form of experience. It doesn't matter whether it's a positive experience, a negative experience, or all the things that could occur in between. It just wants to experience. That is the point.
Yes. And it also sort of politely communicates that not all entities above this plane of existence are perfect. Like Sophia was not a perfect creator.
I very much have a disbelief in perfection. I think
Right.
that perfection is one of the most impossible. It's probably the only impossible thing that exists. Like,
Exactly.
technically.
I mean, Sophia and Yaldabaoth are two great examples of very imperfect creator beings, and yet here we are. You know, we here we are living imperfect lives. So imperfection is almost part of the
Would
soup.
you say it's more of like a spectrum kind of thing? Like it's kind of like a spectrum of light in a way, where and when you move to one side, it becomes 1 degree of polarity, and then you go to the other side, because as above, so below, as they say, right?
As above,
So
so
as
below.
higher up you go, you still can go lower equally. In regards to vibration and a whole lot of other things, consciousness, yeah. Connection to source, you know, like all of that can be, yeah.
The higher you go, the higher the lower you can fall. It's like the spring-loaded diving boards back in the 90s that were so dangerous. You know,
I know that. Yes.
You can get on the highest one, and man, you can jump off that and dive really, really deep. You know, but you better watch out.
Yeah, exactly. The faster you low, you know what I mean, you drop. So Aaron says, can Dr. Scott show us that big chart he has of the hierarchy? You don't happen to have that handy, do you?
Yes, I think I can pull that
Yeah?
up. If you give me a minute.
It is very interesting to kind of study that hierarchy. This is what I've been kind of trying to understand a little bit when regards to light beings and all of these different layers of consciousness, because people always wonder, like, all right, we're in 3D technically, right? That's the frequency we're locked into right now. So as we move up in frequency, how many layers are we talking? Because there are layers that exist between layers. So technically, you know what I mean? Like 4D, for example, you have the lower aspect of 4D and you have the higher aspect of 4D. Then you have 5D, 6D, 7D, all the way up. Many people believe there's 12D. But how do we know that 12D is the top? It could go up to 50 or 100 or infinite. We have no idea. Or perhaps it just cycles back around in another big circle. What if you get to level 50 and you start coming back down again? Because, you know what I mean? It's like you're doing this.
I always had somewhat of an objection to the number 12. It doesn't consider source. It doesn't consider source as a realm in of itself, and I kind of do, just based on my readings. Like it says, these are the realms below source, and you go, you know, you're not even considering source one of the realms. So by definition, that adds one. That means you're at 13, and that's an interesting number. We're at 13. But then if you read Dolores Cannon, you start to realize that source may just be one, maybe our source entity, but it itself is a spark of an even greater source. Well, how far does that go up now?
Oh my
Right?
God. I just had a flashback to that scene in Men in Black when you know what I mean, at the very end of the movie when it zooms out of the universe, and then the next thing you know, it's literally just in a marble that aliens are playing a game with.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? From the micro to the macro perspective. I mean, we have no idea how big things could actually get. We could be,
No, we
you know
don't.
what I mean? What was that one belief that we are just and we live in the eyes of a blue-eyed giant or something like that? I've heard before. Like we're just a tiny speck somewhere, and if on the micro scale. So it makes you wonder how big things can actually get the more you zoom out.
That sounds like something in Norse mythology, where you know, in
I'm pretty
the
sure that's
blue
what
eyes
it
of the
was.
giant.
Yes.
Yeah. I might need a minute to find my where I
Oh, don't
stuck
worry
that
about it
document.
if you don't have it handy. Not a big deal. But it's just interesting to know that there's a hierarchy, even on the other side, technically. Whether it's, I think it's a vibrational hierarchy. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's how we would say it. I don't know. You know, that's what makes sense to us. A vibrational hierarchy. But because hierarchy is part of this, at least this universe's creation, it matters. It matters. So in the same way that Sophia suppressed knowledge of her creation from her peers, she was ashamed of it. She didn't want anyone to know about it. In that same way, Yalda Bayoff suppressed the knowledge, attempted to suppress the knowledge of spirit from Adam. And in the same way, the Catholic Church and the mainstream religion suppresses knowledge of gnosis, knowledge of the spirit side from their followers. And so this is just a repeating pattern. And Gnosticism is about breaking these patterns.
Interesting. There was one case where we had where we were doing clearings on somebody, and the soul guide said, we're going to need a level 24 soul guide to be able to do this clearing. And we were a bit like,
Is this Dungeons?
what do you mean by level 24 soul guide? And it made me think of like bosses when you're playing a video game. Be like, this is a level 24 boss. You need to get to level 24 before you can deal with that mofo, because he's gonna crush you otherwise. So it's kind of like saying, like, how do they even put their own levels to these things? Like the soul guides are even putting levels on each other. And there was this one case where we were doing a clearing on a young boy that had been dealing with attachments since birth, and it was a very difficult clearing because they were so deeply rooted. I mean, this poor kid was just ravaged by these entities. And so we went to clear him, and the guides were like, nah, I can't clear him. And we're like, why not? They're like, we need somebody bigger. So we're like, all right, can we call in the angelics? Yeah, sure. Called in the angelics. Nope, can't do it. You're gonna need somebody bigger. And we're like, shit. All right, well, who can we call up higher than that? And they're like, well, we can call in Archangel Michael. We're like, all right, bring him in. Let's go, Archangel Michael. He comes in. He's like, nope, can't do it. And we're like, fuck, what are we going to do now? And he's like, hold on, we'll get somebody bigger. And we're like, what? And then you know who they brought in? Ra.
What was the name?
Ra. Like Ra, the sun god.
Oh, like Amun Ra. Like
they brought in Ra to do the clearing.
Law of One Ra.
That's why, if you notice, on occasion I wear his symbol. Like, Ra's my boy now. Like, I'm so glad that he came in to help us that one time. But he does come in on occasion, but he's like the biggest bazooka we got, you know? So we don't just bust him out for no reason. We don't just summon him for any reason. This is obviously when you get higher and higher. But I'm like, now I'm wondering who's even bigger than Ra? Like, I wonder, like, is Yeshua up there with Ra? Is Ra there? Like, are they equal? Like, how does these things work? And then it's like even higher and higher and higher it goes.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I just found the document and I put it in a little slide thing. I don't know if you've got it there or not. I can answer that question.
Yeah, Bradley said, yeah, thank you, Bradley. Ra had no idea this kind of shit is going on Earth either. Yeah, some of them are completely unaware of how bad things actually are down here, because they are up here and we're down here, you know? So it's like, it's kind of, I like this one analogy that Daniela said one time. It's like being in an apartment complex, right? And we're on the lower level. We're on like the base floor, and we're like, calling in maintenance, and we're like, hey, there's people breaking into cars, they're smashing windows down here, everything's going to shit. And then people up in the penthouse are like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't hear a thing. What I mean? Penthouse is like, what do you mean it's quiet? And all they can see is the beautiful sunset on the horizon. They don't know about all the shit that's happening on ground level.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And hierarchy is increasingly meaningless. I think the higher and higher you go, but down here from our perspective, it seems to mean a lot, right?
Yeah.
So I put the share screen up. I don't know if you're able to see this.
Oh, you found it.
I found it.
Da-da-da.
So up here is, let me close this. Here is the one, right? This is the one. This is source up here to answer whoever it was that asked that. This is the one that owns the sandbox that everything else plays in.
Yeah.
So that's the one. The one's first creation was a divine feminine entity named Barbelo. And the son of these two is the self-anointed, the self-conceived God. This is where Yeshua hails from. This is his level. So is there stuff above Yeshua? Well, I guess if you get up to Barbelo and the one, sure. Right?
I feel like there's got to be some missing here. Like there's probably a couple tree branches that got trimmed that we don't know about.
Right. This is just what is talked about in the Secret Gospel of John. But who knows if it captures everything, right? But anyway, in the Gospel of Judas, Judas Iscariot said to Yeshua, you are the son of the one in Barbelo, and I am not worthy to speak your name. Right? That was the big controversy there, in that Judas alone understood where Yeshua hailed from in a way that the other disciples did not. And so that's why he was chosen to do this sort of staged betrayal thing, where this wasn't an organic betrayal of Yeshua. This was a plan to get him out of body and back up to where he belongs. So that's a sidebar, but Gospel of Judas is really interesting and a quick read if anyone wants to read it. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but these yellow stars, I put them here to show kind of the divine lineage. So if you were going to play Chutes and Ladders, this is your path back to source, because notice going down all the way here to Sophia, you see how far Sophia herself is removed from the top, right? Yes. So Sophia is here. And so Sophia created Yaldabaoth, and you see that Yaldabaoth has all these emanations, these abyssal creations, these entities that rule time and space. And then we get down here into the Adam and Eve drama. And you see how low humans are. How low humans are in this. Because it's not till we get all the way down here do we get to flesh Adam. This is how far removed humans are from everything above them in the hierarchy, according to the Secret Gospel of John. And so the promise of Gnostic wisdom is that through your spirit, you can kind of take this star path and emulate these examples of those that came before you and return back to source, like you're moving on a game board. So you would start off, by saying, okay, well, what is the feminine? How do I unite that within myself with the masculine? And then you get up here to Yaldabaoth, and you just continue on up the chain in consciousness until you get back up to Barbelo and the one.
Like every link in the chain is kind of like it's an ego filter. It's like it filters consciousness even more down to the next, down to the next, down to the next.
Interesting thing here. Here's the Gnostics. This is where they believed, they're already starting here. They're already starting more than halfway across the journey, because the Gnostics already teach that there's a universe above ours, that there's realms above ours. And so they're already halfway up the game board. And so they don't have to go through all this dynamic that everyone else does that doesn't understand the Gnostic wisdom. They don't have to go through multiple lifetimes to come to that realization. The Gnostics already start halfway up the game board, and then they can just continue on their own star path. So, I could talk for hours about this, but someone wanted to see it. Here it is. This is the hierarchy outlined in the Secret Gospel of John.
Interesting.
So that's it. Excuse me. Anyway, isn't it interesting that here we are as a species seeking higher levels of consciousness constantly. Like this just seems to be what we do. Some people do it through plant medicine. Some people do it through meditation. Some people try and do it through mainstream religious perspectives. Some people do it by getting out in nature. But it's all just a way to get up the game board back to source. It's just a way to not get rid of your ego, but embrace the ego and become one with it, so that there's no conflict within yourself.
Interesting. I'm seeing people are getting kicked out of the chat. That's weird. People are getting kicked out of the video. Huh.
Is there
we got glitches in the Matrix, Dr. Scott.
Right. It's the Matrix.
That was weird. It didn't just drop. Now it dropped. It's really weird. A minute ago it said 76. Now it says 26. It just dropped by 50. I think that's a glitch in the Facebook Matrix there. Either that or they're just like, shh, they're talking about it. Don't let them get away with it. This is trade secrets, Dr. Scott.
It is. It is trade secrets. And as you know, you can take all eternity to learn them if you want, right? Like, when the last entity or soul gets back to source, it's not as if everyone's going to go, boo, you were the last. So yeah. you can take as long as you want, however many lifetimes you need to figure this stuff out. Great. It's not a problem.
Interesting.
I know we talked about the clothing.
Yes.
Clothing line.
How has that been going for you, by the way, marketing your conscious clothing?
So it seems everybody wanted the extra large size and the small size. So both extremes we are completely out of.
There you go. There's your duality right there.
We only have a few of the medium and large size left. So I wanted to have a coupon code for your audience. So if you guys wanted to get the hoodie, and I can put that link in. This is the hoodie. There's a coupon code that we've created just for your audience, and it's just Lara. So if you enter coupon code Lara, anyone can get 10% off their order.
I just dropped the link for everybody. Oh, it's cut it off a little bit at the end there. So that would be the Matrix Hypnosis website, the Matrix Hypnosis Designs website.
That's kind of all my links.
There you go. Yeah, we're having some weird glitches on Facebook that in the last 10, 15 minutes or so. So I don't know what's going on. But if you guys need the link, if you're interested, make sure that you check out Dr. Scott's Facebook page. You'll share it on your page, right? Matrix Hypnosis for everybody today.
Yeah, matrix-hypnosis.com. That's my website. But if you want a hoodie, go to mysticmatrixdesigns.com.
Perfect. It's good seeing you, Patrick. Have a good day. So yeah, I mean, I do wonder where on the chart galactics are as well, Anna. I was just thinking the exact same thing as we were going through the chart. I think all of these are galactics because technically I think that all of this was occurring before Earth even existed. It would be interesting to see where the consciousness of Gaia exists on that chart. Because the planet itself is alive and conscious.
Yeah. My humble gut feeling on that is...
Thanks, Aaron. Yep, there it is, matrixdesigns.com.
They are far above the line of Yaldabaoth. So in order to incarnate probably as a planet, you probably need to come from something higher than this universe, would be my guess.
Yeah, probably. Well, it's usually how it goes. There's always going to be some bigger fishy out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, guys,
Ariana
that
has a good question. Oh, sorry. Has anyone connected with the new Earth soul that's preparing to come in? Because they do say that Gaia herself, Kat and I were talking about this the other day, right, Kat? Where we were talking about how Gaia's consciousness, it was like Gaia's consciousness is like 3D. And then you start getting up higher, it becomes like Pachamama. And then as you get higher level of consciousness, you're convincing with like the, what was the highest one? Terra? I believe, Kat. How do you refer to? But yes, they're right under true source, so above ascended masters. Okay. So ascended masters are basically like just a rung underneath source in a way. That's what makes them an ascended master, is that they've ascended these other layers to get as close to source as possible. That's how I look at it anyway.
Yeah.
Because they have a direct consciousness. I mean, when you connect with Yeshua, when you feel Yeshua come into a session, it almost feels like, because I've been able to connect with source before under meditations and psychedelics and other experiences. And so when you have that connection to source, it almost feels like you're just enveloped in this loving warmth of, you know what I mean? You're just like floating in pure bliss. And so when these ascended masters come in and you connect with their energy, that's very similar to what it feels like, that you are kind of connecting to source.
Yes. And you can see why when Sophia created her little science project and then was ashamed of it, how she would need a higher entity to come in and help her fix it. Right. And so she did
that call out, remember? Yes. Dolores talked about that quite a bit, that call out that Gaia made to the rest of the universe asking for help, and how many star seeds answered the call.
A bunch.
Yeah. Millions. They didn't know what they were getting themselves into completely. A lot of them didn't read the fine print. But, we are very grateful, because that is part of the reason why this planet is shifting in consciousness so quickly. It's almost like it's taking higher consciousness from outside this little bubble that we've been stuck in. It's pulling that higher consciousness in from all different areas.
And then, more and more channels are opening up just here in the 3D, channeling higher consciousness, higher wisdom, more than ever before. Right. And this, I was just talking about this with a friend, for like the mainstream Christian community, and I pick on them a lot because I am one. In a way, I feel more Christian than I did when I went to the Christian church. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
Because you developed your own relationship rather than taking on the one that they offered you.
Right. But just getting people to understand that the doctrine they already subscribe to, like in the case of Christianity in the Bible, much of the Bible is channeled. There's so much channelings going on in the Bible with these prophets. Like, what do people think that the prophets were? Where were they getting the wisdom from? That was a channel. It's a channel that was opened up, guys. And so, if the Orthodox mainstream Christian church looks down their nose at channelers, well, aren't you also looking down the nose at the very text that you pretend that you believe?
The problem is, when somebody brings in new information, that's when they're just like, no, we're happy with what we've already got. Thank you very much. They don't want to have anything new channeled in, because they kind of like what they have, because it's kind of part of they've cherry picked it. They've decided the parts they like, and they've gotten rid of the parts they don't. That's why they deleted so many different books from the Bible as well. They're still cherry picking it even to this day.
They are still cherry picking. But hey, we have a new pope now, right? So
yeah,
he's going to solve everything.
I don't know how much faith I have in somebody from Chicago, I must say. No offense to any Chicagoans around here, but even from Chicago, why I say that. It's not wrong.
No, just look at all the ceremony around this. Like, so many Catholics, even around me here, they're so excited. They think this is great thing that, you know, now we have an American as a pope. But they're not asking the question is, why do we have a pope? Why? What is this person's function? Because Yeshua didn't teach that we needed a pope. Yeshua said, get out in nature and meditate.
Didn't he warn us
Right?
about praying to false gods?
What was that?
What was that about praying to false gods? They said,
Right. I mean, isn't that what people are doing in a very literal sense when they hold this human in spiritual reverence over a diseased organization that has spread so much hatred and condescension and strife across the planet? Why are we celebrating anything with this organization? Is just my personal thing. I apologize to any Catholics that are there, but I pick on them a lot because, again, came up in it, right? I just don't. I don't see how people reconcile these things. They're excited about the Pope, but they're sort of condemning about New Age spiritual practices. It's how do you reconcile these things? Because who do you want to win eventually? Do you want goodness and spirituality to win, or do you want like another Inquisition? What are we cheering for here?
Oh, I'm definitely Team Light. I can tell you that.
Right.
Yes. Margaret had a good question. How can I ask how different Jesus is to the Bible from the real deal? To be honest, he's pretty similar. He's you know, like the Jesus version of him in the Bible doesn't suffer fools, even though he's a really nice guy. Same way that he kind of is now. Like he's just pure love, but at the same time, he's no nonsense.
Yeah,
a little bit like Dolores. Dolores was also pure love, but no nonsense. We don't have time to fuck around, you know. Like,
in my opinion, it's more like errors of omission. So they sort of carved out the pieces of the Jesus character. They surgically grafted and excised the pieces of him they didn't like, and just kept this amended image of him in the mainstream Christianity. So like they left out the pieces of Jesus that was rune casting and doing herbalism and geomancy and alchemy. Like they left, you know, Jesus the practitioner out.
Yes.
And they sort of.
I'm just going to highlight that comment, Ariana. Brilliant book about Jesus. If you would like to read about the real Jesus, the real Yeshua ben Yosef we're talking about, that would be Dolores's book, Jesus and the Essenes. Or We Walked with Jesus, I believe there was the other one.
They Walked with Jesus, yeah.
Yes, They Walked with Jesus. They're both brilliant books. And I love the way that he is depicted in those books, and I resonated very much with it because it's more of a. It didn't deify him. It made him sound more like an advanced starseed / ascended master who was here to elevate the consciousness of humanity, not to be like, I'm the son of God. What? You know, like he wasn't here to brag about it. He was just here. He didn't even want to make a big deal about it. In fact, it wasn't even something that he was focusing on. He was focusing on forgiveness and healing, raising consciousness, embracing the Christ consciousness, which is basically embracing the source within all of us.
Yep.
So, and so many ascended masters have the same, you know, message. And it's kind of funny. Like there was a meme I saw the other day, which I'll share real quick. Where is it? It really cracked me up because it was a picture of Yeshua. There he is. Hanging out in the celestial tea house. Buddha laughing about how they had the exact same message, but just kind of rebranded and being like, well, I said this. And he's like, well, I said that. It's the same thing, you know? Like, right. Did your people get it? Oh, a little. My people got it a little too. You know, like they have to keep rebranding and repackaging the same message over and over again.
And we get in our own way as a species. We put these mainstream institutions in our own ascension path as obstacles to overcome is one way to look at it. But reading the texts that were left out of the Bible is so enlightening just in of itself, just so you can start to see, you can see the reasons why the church would have left some of these things out, you know, because
well, they didn't leave out the fire and brimstone parts. They made sure to keep those in there, you know, but all the stuff about loving thy neighbor and, you know, just embracing your true nature of love is, they kind of like, oh, we can trim the fat on this a little bit, you know, like they've really kind of, and also I hate to say it, but every version of the Bible that has come out, they've kind of omitted more and more and more.
Yes. In fact, the Secret Gospel of John, just as an example, that book alone challenges the authority of the Old Testament God, the lowercase g. That book alone challenges his authority. But so does the Bible in many places. There's a New Testament verse. I can get this verse for you, but Yeshua was talking to the Pharisees, and he said to them, "Your God is sackless." So he's telling the Jewish leadership that your God is sackless in plain dialect, right? And King James translated that as the devil. So he's telling the Jews, your God is sackless, right? As plainly as he could state it. And so that suggests that then Yeshua's God is not sackless, right? So just reading that and you're like, oh, wait, so now I know who Sackless is. Sackless is this Yaldabaoth character who created this material realm, and he rules it with archons. And Yeshua is accusing the Jewish leadership of worshiping at the universe level rather than seeking the higher realms from whence he came. So that's that. I thought that was super interesting. But Secret Gospel of John challenges the Old Testament authority. It promotes direct knowledge over religious hierarchy. So that's another reason. It's not just the Secret Gospel of John. Many of the Gnostic texts promote direct knowledge and inner knowing over religious hierarchy. And it presents this character of Yeshua as the revealer of hidden knowledge, because he's the one who came in to sort of rescue Sophia's Frankenstein science project and restore the light.
Frankenstein science project.
Yeah.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah. And so we had church fathers like this Irenaeus character who explicitly condemned the Gnostic texts way back when, and only included writings in the Bible that supported the apostolic authority, and they preached control of doctrine. Well, that didn't work out so well for everybody. When you start preaching control of doctrine, then in a couple hundred years, you start doing an inquisition to anyone that doesn't conform to that doctrine, right? They destroy things like the Essene Compound and the Library at Alexandria. Like this doesn't work too well.
Oh, I mean, there was this one movie, Zeitgeist, one of the first important documentaries I watched about this subject. And they had the list of notable book burnings throughout history, if you remember watching Zeitgeist. And I mean, it went on for fucking 5 minutes. I mean, just the list. And then, I mean, it was going quick too. You know what I mean? Like the list was just scrolling up, notable book burnings. I mean, there were thousands just going up the list. And I mean, that is obvious how much, and you know, consciousness has been suppressed by, you know, just shredding of all that knowledge. They want us to stay ignorant. And anytime people come up with a very important leap forward through a golden age of exploration, of art and creativity, there ends up being some kind of a kickback that comes and undoes all of that hard work. Because they're like, oh, no, you don't. You're not having a golden age. We're not going to allow you to raise your consciousness to the point where you start recognizing your own divinity. We're not going to allow that to occur. We're going to end up creating some mass wars. We're going to create famine. We're going to create pestilence and all of this crazy things, you know, and disease. And all of that is part of the design, because it's like the crabs in the bucket. You're trying to climb out the bucket. You're trying to kind of escape this 3D matrix. And that is part of the design, where they just pull you right back in as you're about to escape it.
Well, you said it perfectly there. And then as above, so below. So that thing you just described is repeating the same pattern that Yaldabaoth repeated with Adam. It's like, oh
Yeah.
no, you don't get a divine spark in it all of yourself. I'm going to confuse you with all this soul stuff, and I'm going to, degrade your being so that you think there's only me. We're supposed to think there's only the church.
Though this shift, if it wasn't going to happen, if this 5D shift, if I wasn't so absolutely convinced that this was going to occur, I don't know how I would keep my sanity intact, knowing I have to keep repeating this cycle. It reminds me of that conversation at the end of The Matrix that Neo has with the architect. And he finds out that the architect's like, oh yeah, we've had this conversation like 6 times before. You've had to come through this cycle over, you know what I mean? And Neo's like, fuck, like, what do you mean this is like the 5th, 6th time we've had this conversation?
Look, I've got Neo right here.
Thank God, we're finally coming to the end of this cycle. And Neo's like, no, I'm not going to do the same thing I've done 5, 6 times. You're out of your mind. I'm not going to do it. So, right. I mean, once you become aware of your previous, cycles and you can break out of that mold.
That is the pattern that we're supposed to emulate. We're supposed to break out, just like Adam eventually realized in the text that, hey, I actually came from divine lineage, and all this is a distraction. We're supposed to have the same realization.
Yes, time for jailbreak, baby. Yes, we're getting out of here. Oh yeah, breaking down the bars, so to speak. Yes,
right.
Time.
And then once we get up to the next level, then there's the whole new set of challenges there. But these challenges feel sort of old and tired and bored. Like, are we?
I'm so
ready
over
to get
it.
out of first grade yet?
I'm done. I'm done. No more. No. Done repeating patterns. When you start studying patterns, you notice how much you repeat things. And you can predict the future. And if you are truly set against creating the same future, you can do that by studying the patterns and doing something different. What's the definition of insanity?
Repeating the same thing over and over, expecting different results.
Exactly. So no, we can't repeat anymore. We're breaking the cycle. And all by educating ourselves and others and just by declaring, no, I'm not doing it again. Kind of like Neo did with the architect. He said, no, fuck you. I'm done. I'm not doing it again. No. We have free will. We have a choice. I'm source. Thank you very much. I have a choice in all of this.
Right. That was such a great scene in that movie too. I remember paying so much attention to that whole speech and then going to play it back. Like that was so. It
tickled my brain the first 5 times I tried to understand it. It took me years of understanding the 3D Matrix to be able to rewatch it and finally be able to understand what the hell he was even talking about. Because all that ergo stuff went straight over my head. I did not understand what he was saying. I was just like, what the hell? In fact, it pissed me off because we went through all that to get to this cocky guy that doesn't make any sense. And I was like, what is even the point? But after my spiritual awakening, going back, looking at it in a new context, that's when I started to really understand what the architect was saying and how much I vehemently disagreed with what he was trying to express. Like, no.
Yeah, the Gnostic equivalent for the architect would have been Yaldabaoth, right? Because the architect created the Matrix, Yaldabaoth created the universe. And so his goal is to keep people in the architect's goal is to keep people in the Matrix. Yaldabaoth's goal is to keep people in the universe. He doesn't want you ascending beyond his control.
No, he doesn't.
So
good thing he doesn't get a say anymore. Nope. Breaking out of the jail.
The sad thing,
conversation. I love this subject though, because even though like I understand that you're kind of seeing it through the filter of religion and channeled messages, especially from so long ago, the fact that it still makes sense to this day does show that there is some truth in it, regardless of how it's been packaged and kind of, over the eras.
Yeah, it shows that Yeshua, if you read these old texts, it shows that Yeshua was like Morpheus. He was trying to unplug people from the Matrix. So he started with his disciples his whole story, going town to town to town, going through India and Tibet.
Oh, the white rabbit.
Right. That's what he was doing. He was following the white rabbit, and he's unplugging souls everywhere he goes. Yes. He's not doing some pious thing in a church somewhere. He's out in nature and he's talking.
It's interesting too. His counterpart was called Trinity. Yep. That in itself is a whole nother subject that we could have. Maybe we'll save that for the next one, Dr. Scott, because I could have a whole nother subject all about Trinity itself, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I love hanging out with you, Dr. Scott. Thank you so much. It really is a pleasure. And, I hope I'm going to share your link one more time for everybody. So if you want to get some badass Matrix clothing.
Yes, mysticmatrixdesigns.com. And at checkout, enter the promo code LARA, Lara, and get 10% off just for you guys.
It's cool. Then we can be matchy because Dr. Scott sent me one and I love it. It is the nicest hoodie I have. So just for the record, it's really well made. I love the hood on it too. I feel like a monk when I'm wearing it because it comes down here. I was on an airplane wearing it and I was like, it covered up my whole face. I was like, man, this is perfect. Like, that's a great hoodie. I love it. So thank you very much.
Got the Eye of Horus watching your back and the Ankh watching your back. And you got the...
Or it could be the Eye of Ra, depending on the way you're looking at it.
That's true.
Yes. Switchy. I love it. Yep. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, everybody. It's always a wonderful chat with Dr. Scott here. And thank you for being here with us, enjoying this chat. And Dr. Scott, I'll have to come back in a couple of weeks and we'll continue the chat.
It's been great being with you guys. Appreciate it.
I love you all. I will see you guys tomorrow with another Ascended Master. We get to ask Siddhartha about some of this tomorrow. Wouldn't that be great? We'll get some from his perspective. Cool. Gotta love it. I hope you all have a magical day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Lots of love, everybody. Mwah.
Appreciate you all.
See you soon.